So the next thing that would be nice to do is to try and get some graphics into the game, and this is where I found great satisfaction in seeing the game really coming together. Now, to do this, I'm going to go to a web browser and go and find the images I want. Now, and I might actually, in a second, create some images as well. But for now, I'd like to get a bird that I can have flapping through my game. I'm just going to search bird. I'm also going to search the word PNG. I'm not sure this is going to pan out for me. The reason I'm searching for a PNG is because PNG is a file type that will store transparencies, which means that if I go and look at some pictures of these birds, I'm hoping that the white areas in the backgrounds of some of these are actually going to be see-through. And the reason for that is otherwise I'm going to end up with a big white box around my bird, and I don't really want that to happen. Well, I could use any of these birds. I quite like the look of this one. And when I click on it, you'll notice I've got these white and grey squares in the background, and that's a perfect sign for me. That means that it's transparent in the background. So what I'm actually going to do is download this image, and to do that I'm going to right click on it, and I'm just going to save the image as, and we'll save this into a sensible place. So I'm going to go into my documents, and or maybe I'll save it into my pictures, and I'm going to save this as bird. Now I'm saving it as a PNG file type, which is good because it will keep its transparency, and we'll hit save. It says it's saved, so that's pretty positive. So how do we actually get this bird to be imported as our bird in our game? Well, if we go back to Small Basic, we can go back to the top of our tutorial, where in here we were talking about creating a bird, and we actually did that in here by saying the bird equals shapes.addEllipse blah blah blah. Now, rather than add an ellipse and change the brush color to be red to create a red circle instead of a bird, let's instead do something a bit different. I don't need to change the color now because I'm going to use a picture. So instead, I'm going to say the bird, let's call it bird location. So bird location equals, and this is where I'm just going to store the location of the bird. Now let's go and find it in our file browser, and if I go to the pictures, which I think is where I saved it, and sure enough, there's my bird. Now if I click in this box at the top, it gives me the location of that bird. Now actually, I've noticed a little problem here that I've done previously, which is the location isn't pulling up actually to say where it is in location to the C drive. And I'm just going to check to see whether if I go to properties it does give me that information. Ah, yes it does. So I'm going to need this location here, which is a little bit more specific. So I'm just going to go and copy this code here, and right click, copy. And I'm going to go and paste that into where I'm storing the bird's location. And I'm going to paste that in. Now, there's something else worth noting here. We're going to need a backslash. I'm using a Mac, and I'm not quite sure what the backslash is in relation to Windows. So I'm just going to copy and paste that backslash. And now I need to say the name of the file. And again, let's just go and double check by going to our file location. And the name of the file is bird. Now, it's actually more than bird because it's not showing the extension. So it's bird.png, which is the file type of the bird. There's one last thing we need to do, which is to actually store this as a string. So I need to put speech marks around this file location. Okay, so we've now got the file location of the bird that we saved, and the bird equals, well, we don't want it to equal an ellipse anymore, but we do want it to be a shape. I'm actually going to delete all of this and just start it from fresh. So our bird is no longer going to equal that. It's now going to equal shapes.add, and you'll notice we've got an add image function. So with our add image, we can say, well, we'd like to add an image, and you'll notice that to do this, it's just asking us to put in an image name. And our image name is actually going to be our image location. So I'm going to type in bird location, close brackets, and hopefully now if I run that, well, yes, we get a very, very big bird drawn, and its dimensions aren't in the exact right place, and I don't think it's really going to work for what we need it to do. So what we're going to do next is see if we can figure out how to get this bird to be the size we want it to be, and to make sure it's being drawn in the place we want it to be. To do that, we're going to use a new bit of software. You can use any bit of software you like for this. I'm going to use a piece of software called GIMP. The reason I'm using this is it's very similar to Adobe CS4's packages for Fireworks and Photoshop, but it's free. It's available on Linux, Windows and Mac, and it'll allow us to be able to edit our image to a size that we want. So what I've done here is I've opened up GIMP. You'll notice that I'm actually running this on a Mac, but of course it's exactly the same on a PC, and there'll be no differences for you. I've also just gone ahead and opened, by going File Open, the bird image that we have saved, and I called that file bird. So I'm now going to go to the image drop down, and we're going to start off by doing what's called a zealous crop, which will remove any excess space from around the bird. So if I start with that, and we can see it's cropped out all the unnecessary parts, so the bird is really touching the edges of the image now. Secondly, we need to lower the size of the image. Now to do this, I'm going to use the scale image, again under the image drop down, and we're going to scale the image to be 50 pixels wide by 50 pixels deep. I'm just changing those locks so it actually goes to exactly the size I want it to be. So scale that, and we've now got the image we want. Of course, if we wanted to see it closer, we can just zoom in. Looks quite pixelated now, but that shouldn't be a problem because it's going to be pretty small on our screen. We could increase the pixel density, etc., assuming it was a vector-based image, but for now I'm happy with a low resolution picture of a bird. So it is worth noting at this point that to save this as a PNG, we do need to go to File and actually export this image rather than just save it. And when we go to export, we can make sure that we're exporting it as a PNG. So after editing the bird and making sure that it's still in place and named the same document, this link is correct. If we run our program now, we should find that we've got a good sized bird ready to play the game with, working on the dimensions that we programmed it to. Now, the game is not easy, and it will certainly be reasonably challenging, but that's the nature of the game. But just to prove that it will now crash, so that works as expected, and we can crash into the top of the screen, the bottom of the screen, and both towers, or tubes I should say.